With game week 25 being a really nice double, you might be tempted to hit the wildcard button. If you are, I've got a draft for you. Alright then, we're going to start off by talking about the goalkeepers and defenders, and I'll say up front with the goalkeepers, I'm still much for muchness on who you go for in goal. I've gone for Kaminski purely for the fact he makes a decent amount of saves and he's got 2 fixtures in 25 and also a double in game week 28. And Dubravka on my bench because I think he's probably the best bench keeper, probably. I mean, ultimately, you could pick whoever you like in goal. I'm not too hard and fast on the best options here. I would have gone for David Raya, but you can see here I've gone for double Arsenal defence in Saliba and Gabriel. I'll talk about them in a second. So I couldn't fit Raya in. I think he's probably the best goalkeeper in the game at the moment. Could go for Alisson, I guess, but a little bit of a doubt around his minutes with the flu he picked up, which kept him out of game week 24. I just don't see a standout goalkeeper at the moment. So feel free to pick your own if you don't agree with Kaminski and Dubravka. Kyle Walker, I'll talk about him in a second as well. Saliba and Gabriel, I really like as an Arsenal double up. I think Arsenal are proven to be probably just the best defence in the league. Proven in recent game weeks that they can actually keep clean sheets. And I'm pretty sure they've scored 15 goals now this season from set pieces, with Gabriel in particular. Saliba's slightly less, but still a threat. Gabriel being a real goal threat from those set pieces. So I think it makes sense to go for these two guys. And one thing I like about the Arsenal defence above some of the other teams is you know pretty much every game what the back four is going to be. Now, it might not be White and Zinchenko at left and right back, but it's definitely, in my opinion, going to be Saliba and Gabriel playing at centre back. And that, for me, I think makes them nailed on in this draft. I said I'd talk about him in a second, and Kyle Walker is my pick of the Man City defenders. I'd say he is looking a bit more attacking than he has been in previous seasons. And I would say as well, Man City, they seem to really miss him when he's not in the team. Both, obviously, on a defensive front, because he's absolutely amazing on 1v1 situations. But going forward, he's actually been carrying the ball quite nicely this season, which I've noticed for Man City. So I do think he's got a good chance of playing both games of the double. Whether he actually starts both of them, I'm not sure. I do think he probably gets minutes in both games. I mean, ultimately, pet roulette for Man City is going to be in full swing. So outside of Rodri, maybe Haaland, it's really hard to nail down a couple of other players or one other player that's going to play every game. But I do think Kyle Walker is probably the most nailed and best Man City asset. And of course, Man City, they don't blank in game week 26, which makes him slightly more attractive. On to the midfield then, and I've gone for Phil Foden, Diogo Jota, Saka and Richarlison. I'll talk about Saka and Richarlison because I've got a little feature on Jota and Foden up next. Saka is now the 3rd highest scoring player in the game. I think he's literally the most popular player in the game. So, I mean, you probably have him already if you're watching this video, right? But I just don't see any reason why you don't pick him in your wildcard draft. I mean, he's got Newcastle. I know I've picked Dubravka on my bench, but Newcastle have not looked that great defensively, right? I do feel like Saka could score against Newcastle in game week 26 when a lot of teams blank, and he's got Burnley in game week 25. So I know that's not a double game week fixture, but I do think Arsenal will put 3 or 4 goals past Burnley based on how they've been playing in recent games. Saka, I think, is Arsenal's best player. Nailed on that right wing. I don't think there's any competition for his space. And he takes the penalties. Obviously, does give some to Odegaard, as we've seen this season. But yeah, I think he's a great option. Likewise, Richarlison, probably not on the penalties anymore with Son coming back. But I think he's going to continue playing at striker for Spurs. I know he blanks in game week 26, but you can see on the bench there, I've got a nice bit of bench cover in Hwang Hee-chan when he doesn't play in game week 26. So he can come in for him or Diogo Jota. Then, of course, you'll get a free transfer in 26 as well to sort your team out if you want to. I really like this midfield, and I think with game week 25 in mind, these are probably the best 4 players you can pick. A bit more detail then about the doublers, and Diogo Jota up first. He's got fantastic numbers for the amount of minutes he's played this season, right? He's an absolutely lethal finisher as well. He can score goals with both feet and with his head, as he proved in game week 24. I think of all the Liverpool forwards, I would probably say, based on recent form, Diogo Jota is the most likely to start both games of the double. But I'm going to be honest, right? Those Liverpool forwards that play in that front three, I think it's really hard to predict any of them playing both games or starting both games in 25 because they got 2 fixtures in 25 and then they play the Carabao Cup final the weekend after. My thinking is potentially we see Jota start both games in 25, Salah come on off the bench for the second game, probably for Jota, and then Salah starts the cup final for Jota. I think that could be how it plays out. I mean, that's just my prediction. What do I know? But yeah, you've got to ask the question, will he start both games? But I think regardless, he's going to get a good amount of minutes and going to be a really good option. It's kind of the same thought for me on Phil Foden for minutes. You can't deny the form he's in, and all the good words that Pep has stated about him in his press conference, I think makes me think, bar Rodri, as I've mentioned before, Foden's probably the Man City midfielder that's going to get the most minutes. Whether he starts both games with the expected Pep roulette that's going on remains a question, right? We don't know. I do think he could get a rest against Copenhagen this week in the Champions League, and then likely, I think he could start both games of double Game Week 25 feasibly, and then potentially be subbed either in one or both of them. But I think of all the Man City midfielders that I'd want to pick, I don't mind Rodri, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's explosive enough in terms of attacking returns to go for him. I think you're best off getting Foden. I think he's got the best upside in terms of minutes, and he can do well for scoring points as well. All right, then on to the forwards. I've gone for Haaland, Toney, and Darwin Núñez up front. It was actually quite a tough one because I really do like Ivan Toney, but Ollie Watkins has been in really good form as well. And it was hard not to pick him, I must say. I do really like Ivan Toney. He's got a double in 25, he plays in 26, and he plays in Game Week 29. I'll talk about him a bit more in a second. Haaland's in. Obviously, if you're playing your wild card, you can't triple captain him. I do think it's a really good opportunity to just get that triple captain chip used on him this week. And then Darwin Núñez, I think it makes sense to go for him, right? He's got a nice double game week. There's going to be a game, right, where he absolutely explodes and scores 4 or 5 goals in a game, right? He's genuinely capable of doing that. Pray to the FPL gods that happens in Game Week 25. Yeah, just a bit more detail on Toney, really. I really like Toney as a player. I think he could sign for any, particularly Arsenal, and make them a real title-winning squad. I think he's the final piece in their puzzle, just a side note. But he is genuinely one of the best strikers in the league, in my opinion. Nailed on to start for Brentford. Takes penalties and the free kicks with no Mbeumo in the side. He's, of course, got the double in 25 against, it is Liverpool and Man City, right? But he's got a great record, particularly Brentford as well, have a great record against the top teams. I'm pretty sure he scored a brace at the Etihad last season. But the reverse fixture happened against Man City in Game Week 23. Yes, Toney didn't score, but he basically set up the Neil Maupay goal. It wasn't an assist, but I mean, if I could control it, I'd give him an assist for it. I just really like him as an option. There aren't really many question marks about him. The January transfer window's gone. He's not going to sign for another club. He's obviously flirting with a big club, but I just don't see any way, Thomas Frank leaves him out of the team. He's a great option, and I really like him. Just with this final feature before I summarise the team. Now, obviously, with double Game Week 25 coming up, it's going to be important to pick players with a double game week. And obviously, the 4 teams with a double, we got Liverpool, Man City, Luton, and Brentford, right? So I thought I'd put together a list of my top targets from each of the teams. So in green are players that I would genuinely pick in my FPL team. And in orange are the players that are kind of on the fringe, really. Jota and Darwin are the 2 from Liverpool that I definitely pick. Noting for double Game Week 25, I don't actually have 3 Liverpool players. I think with their blank in 26, it makes it really hard to pick 3 because you're automatically blocking them out for next week. Man City, I've said Haaland, De Bruyne and Foden are the best 3. I've obviously gone for Walker because outside of him, I don't see a Man City defender that I can really believe in to start both games. Alvarez is good, don't get me wrong, but I think his minutes will be limited. Ederson, he's good. He's going to play both games, in my opinion, but he only gets points for clean sheets, which Man City don't really keep that often. Rodri's probably going to play all the games, but I don't think he has enough upside to make him worthwhile. From a Luton perspective, the only player I'd really pick from Luton, bar Kaminsky, is Morris, Carlton Morris. I really like him as an option. He's on penalties, seems to be pretty dangerous from open play. Yeah, he's a good option. Doty, I just don't trust the Luton defence. Yes, I've gone for Kaminsky in this wildcard draft, but I think there's much of a muchness in the keepers, really. I just like the fact that Kaminsky makes a lot of saves, so even if he doesn't keep clean sheets, he can still get a good amount of saves and hopefully secure maximum saves bonus in most of the games he plays. Barkley, he's very decent. I just think there are other better midfielders in FPL you can go for. Adebayo's good. I just don't think he's quite as good as Morris. And then you could have Bell as a cheap 4 million defender just to stick in. For Brentford, I realistically think there's probably one pickable player, and that's Tony. Obviously, I waxed lyrical about him earlier, right? Reguilon's decent from a defensive perspective. Morpie is obviously playing up front with Tony at the moment. Seems to be doing quite well, but I mean, you can't really pick Neil Morpie in your team. Pinnock, he just plays every game in defence for them, although I don't think they're going to keep that many clean sheets. Same sort of downside for Flecken. And then Wissa, just returning from AFCON, I think he's going to find it quite hard to get back in that team over Morpie. So for that reason, I think Tony's probably the only pickable Brentford player. And just to finish things off, here is the team as a whole. I'll summarise like the price and the expected points, etc. Basically, it's really hard to pick a team that has the right player prices in the Draft Hound model, because this is based on the player prices as they appear in my FPL team. Some of them I own already, so I've earned a bit of cash from, and some of them, obviously, I still need to buy. What I have done is I've left plenty of cash in the bank with this team, right? So anyone watching this video should be able to afford it, and it's kind of why I picked Kaminsky, because he's a little bit cheaper. If you want to spend a bit more on a goalkeeper that might get you more points, or maybe one that doesn't double, I mean, you can. I think I'm a little bit fast and loose on those goalkeepers, but 111.7 expected points in Game Week 25. You came away from Game Week 25 with 111 points. I think you'd be pretty happy. All right, and that's the end of the video. Quick little wildcard draft there to keep you going with FPL content and hopefully help you get ready for the big double in 25 if you, of course, wanted to play your wildcard. If you enjoyed it, please let me know by leaving a like rating. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of these picks. Like I say in most of my videos, you know, FPL is all about different opinions. So if your opinion's different to mine, I'd be interested to know in the comments. If you want to see more content from me, I'd be very grateful if you could subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just there. And I will see you again in my next video.